Today on the Curious Tycoon Podcast, we're diving into the world of sports, business, and innovation. We're going to meet Adam Pennington, the mastermind behind the Game Time Watches, the number one selling licensed watch brand in the history of the NFL and the Major League Baseball. Patented technology that helped fans feel more connected to their favorite teams. Let's talk about innovation, identity, and business of time itself. Without further ado, welcome Mr. Adam Pennington. I'm good, thank you. Happy Easter to you. We're recording today, Easter Monday. How have you been celebrating?
It was a nice Easter. How about you?
Great, here in London. It's nice to have you today on the podcast. May we just know a little bit about you?
I appreciate you having me. I've been in the watch business for a long time. I've been a licensee of some of the major leagues in the U.S. here, the NFL, MLB, NHL, NASCAR. So we've been making watches and for the teams of wall clocks and desk clocks. We're just starting to move out into some other products as well, cigar ashtrays and torch lighters, and just some other things that to expand our portfolio a bit. But it's been great because I'm a big sports fan, and to be able to work in a field that you love and that you follow, that you're passionate about, it's made for a nice long run for us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you're a big sports fan. So what team do you support, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm a huge Knicks fan, and they're in the playoffs now, which is good. I'm a Jets fan, which not so great. Mets fan, better this year, which is good. And Mets, Jets, Knicks are my main teams. Islanders, I follow some with hockey, but mostly Mets, Jets, and Knicks.
Yeah, America is a crazy sports country, isn't it? There's a lot of sports to follow. And obviously, basketball is the big one over there. From where I come from, obviously for us, it's mainly football, really. And I'm a Man United fan myself. And obviously, we're not doing so well at the moment. But good to have you on, Adam. So let's just get into your entrepreneurship and your leadership, right? That you've obviously been involved in. You started out in a basement.
Yeah.
And now you're a multi-million, you have a multi-dollar company. What was the spark behind the first watch?
Well, I'll tell you, and it's a really long story, which I'll try to condense a little bit for you. We came up with an idea a long time ago, pre-internet, pre-cell phone, to make a watch that has your entire season schedule of your favorite team pre-programmed in the watch. So again, not as big a deal now, but back then there was no technology out like it. So if you were a Mets fan, let's say, the watch would give you the time, date, and say Mets versus Atlanta, 1:00. At the start of every game, an alarm would go off and play "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" to remind you it's game time. That's the name of the business that started us, and we went from. It took us about 6 or 7 years to get the watch made. We finally found an engineer in Hong Kong who could make it for us, which was great. We brought it in. We had a really nice run early on. We started with baseball, and then the NFL saw it, and they called us and said, we'd like you to do NFL watches, and then the NBA did, and the NHL did. So the leagues saw the watch, thought it was cool, new cutting-edge technology. Again, at the time, when I tell my kids about it now, they roll their eyes. Because, wow, you had your schedule on. Everybody has everything on their phone, so you don't need that. But back then, we were on the front page of USA Today Business, Sports Illustrated, all these write-ups on us as cool, new, cutting-edge sports technology. So we sort of launched the business that way. We'd have the watches pre-made, in Hong Kong at the factory. They were shipping to us. We had them in the basement. And, again, pre-internet, so there's no ordering on Amazon. One watch at a time. Grab them and somebody would mail order, write us, send us a check, we cash a check, go to the post office and ship the watch out. So that's how we sort of got started. And then, a couple of the leagues, we asked them, can we do a regular quartz analog watch, regular watch instead of the schedule watch? They said yes. They allowed us to do it. We sold an awful lot right away. Our first big sale was on Home Shopping Network. And we gave them 1,000 watches to sell, and they sold 1,500 watches in about 3 minutes. So we went on to something. This is good. We oversold, and at that point, the league said, okay, you could do this one style watch. And within probably 2 years, we had every team, every league, about 10 different styles of watches, and men's, ladies, kids, and business that way.
I mean, I feel like you already answered my next question. I was going to ask. I'm going to ask it anyway because maybe there's another perspective that you're going to give us here. And every business has that moment where, man, we're onto something here, right? So, what was that moment that you knew that Game Time had moved from an idea to an industry?
I think really it was that home shopping order when we went. We had gone. The watch was cool. We knew that it was different. We'd had a lot of people tell us, "Don't waste your time. Don't it's never going to work." Blah blah blah. That was 25 years ago. It's never going to work. And we when we went on HSN and we're kind of hitting across the country, and what's great about them was you could see who was buying and where they were buying from. Was it men? Was it women? You get a real feel of the demographic. Was it being bought as a gift? Was it being bought as something for me that I want? And to be able to see that, hey, we sold that many watches that quickly. It was a nice watch. It wasn't earth shattering. It was nice, and to be able to sell that many watches that quickly, we went, there's something here. We knew at that point there was something there.
You've talked about technology now, right? And how some of these things are now on the phones everywhere. People have this in calendars and all that. I'm sure you must have sort of developed that idea even more. So how is it working now compared to when you started? Like what are the differences that you've noticed compared to when it started
Well,
25 years ago?
first really is communication with the factories. That more than anything, I still remember the first time we got video conferencing, in our office, and this is probably 15 years ago, 15 years ago. We all sit around the conference room at 9 in the morning. It was 9 at night in China at the factory. And it was the coolest thing in the world that you could actually look at them and speak to them instead of faxing, doing it on the phone, emailing, as the years progress. But that was cool. And now what we're doing, we could be on different sides of the world, and it's like we're in the same room talking. And that changed the game a lot for everybody, not just us in business, but everybody in business. That was a game changer. Being able to get to the factories, still a very long trip, but to be able to get to the factories and really sit with them. There's no exception. You need to be there. You need to be able to meet the people. It's really not a substitute for being face to face with somebody that you're working with. And Zooms are great, and phone calls and emails are all great, but to be able to go sit down, negotiate, show them at the factory, this is the watch that I want. This I want to dump. So that way technology has changed your business so much, and it's great. It also does help, obviously, with the Zoom. Again, I could literally pick up a watch and hold it up and say, "This is what I want.
This is what I want.
Change X, Y, and Z on the watch." Okay, and then the next day I'll have renderings emailed to me, and we'll be in production.
So that's awesome. One leadership lesson that you wish you learned earlier.
You know what? That's a really good question. There's a saying that I had that I used to tell students all the time. Make your product obsolete before someone else does. And I think it's a great that quote, but I did not. I read it in a book one time. I went, that's a really good quote. You are building, you're building a business, and you tend to like work with us with the schedule watch. Hey, this is great. This is going to do well for a long, long time. Well, it may not. You need to find the new cool schedule watch before somebody else does and puts you out of business. So it's all about continuing to grow, right? You continue to grow, you continue to learn. You need to know what people want, what they want in a product, what they want in delivery. I mean, just look at what Amazon's done to the business. So now everybody needs everything tomorrow. They call you 10 o'clock at night. Could I have it tomorrow? It's changed, and it changes every day. I think, when I was younger, I was a little hard-headed. This is the way we're going to do it. This is what's going to be successful. So far it's worked, so I'm going to stay. And I've learned over the years that you really need to adapt and change and you know, see what's new and adapt to it.
Yeah, one thing that came to my mind while you were talking about making, by the way, I've written down that quote because that's a hell of a quote. Make your own product obsolete before someone else does. The thing that came to my mind was, is it box office and Netflix? Back in the day when, you remember the movie rentals, when movies used to be, you go on and I've forgotten the name of the company now. The company that Netflix took out of business, you know. I recently read about it and even realizing, even more painfully for them, that they were actually offered the chance to buy Netflix for about $50 million, and they passed it on. I've forgotten the name of that company. I'm going to check it out. And, they definitely took Netflix definitely took them out of business because
Yeah.
obviously you said there with people, what do the people want? And people wanted to be able to watch their movies real time. They
Yeah.
didn't want to go and rent and then come back in and return on all those things. Yeah, that's incredible. That's really awesome, and that's something definitely that I would love my audience to take on board. So, guys that are watching us today, be sure to innovate, and innovate. Never stop innovating. That's really really awesome. Thanks again, Adam, for coming on today. Well, you're into sports and licensing. Let's get a little bit into some of the big brands, big sports brands you've worked with. You've worked with some of the biggest ones, the NFL, MLB, and WWE as well. So
Yeah.
what's the key to landing and keeping those licenses?
Well, I'll tell you the majority of business, at least that I found over is relationships, right? You work with people, you build relationships, and especially at the leagues, there's turnovers, people leave. But a lot of the people that I work with now were interns when I started working with them, and now they're moved up and they're VPs, and we I've worked with them for so long and kept that relationship, and I've always been honest with them, straight with them, and have paid when I have to pay. And I think that's allowed us to we've had these licenses 20 plus years for all the leagues. So I've been, better or worse, I've been the face of the company to the league. So they know me as Game Time, and they know that we are going to produce every year. They know that we're going to pay every year, that we're not going to put a product out that is not approved. Hands down, you're talking about the big licenses, hands down, it's the NFL. They're the big dog, right? They in the U.S. sports, they are huge. And, we do a good example. The NFL just called about 2 weeks ago and they said, we have the NFL draft, which is this Thursday night, I believe. And they said, we need a countdown clock with our logo on it for the draft. Can you do that for us? So we go out to the factory, we have the clock made, put their logo on it, ship it. I just got it in today. It's going to go out. So it'll be there by Wednesday for the Thursday night draft. And, things like that. I don't make any money on it, but it helps them. And if it helps them, it's good for us. And again, it's that, not that they owe me one by any means, but they will remember what if I need something, they'll know I'm there for them when they need me. If they need something quickly, I could turn around for them.
And
So
then, of course, they give you that exposure as well that you need because NFL is big. There are lots. The market that they command is obviously massive. So, and that's the market that you're really targeting, isn't it?
the NFL market is I used to a little while back I taught a class at NYU, entrepreneurship in the business of sports, and I would have the students go to a game, and I said, just for a little while, don't pay attention to the game. Look in the stands. If you go to a football game, look in the stands for the game. See what people are wearing. See how much product that has NFL logos on it. If you go to a Jets game, it'll have the hats, the jerseys, the shorts, the shoes, everything, bracelets, like
Yeah,
their hoodies,
scarves.
their scarves, their gloves, anything that has a logo on it. And you look at that and see how much money that people are spending on their team. Every league is like that, but with the NFL, it's just a little higher than the other leagues. It's a juggernaut. You know, how much product they sell, the billions of dollars a year of product they sell. There's a big show in Las Vegas every year called the Sports Licensing Show, and it has companies like mine who are licensees of the leagues go there and show their product. then buyers from anywhere from small mom and pops to Walmart come and they look and they see what's new and interesting, and we want to carry watches in our show, so they'll come to our booth and we'll talk to them, hopefully write up orders. But I mean, you have hundreds and hundreds of booths at this show that just everybody's got something different. Everybody's got it. And I mean, I hate to say it, but half of the products aren't going to make it, because when you license with a league, again, not to get too much into the weeds, but when you license with the league, you have to pay them an upfront guarantee. So if you say, I want to be a licensee of the NFL may come to you and say, okay, you have to guarantee us you'll sell, $3 million in product this year, and we get 18% of that $3 million. So you have to come up with that money upfront before you sell one product. So it's tough. I mean, it's a lot of companies. Oh, this is great. I'm going to sell cufflinks and I'm going to make $1 zillion on it. And then they realize, okay, it's not as easy to do as quickly. I've got a big payment to make. Even if I don't sell any product, I still have to pay that money. So it's not as easy a business as it sounds.
As it looks.
And there's a lot, a lot of different, if you think one style watch, there's 32 NFL teams. So that means we have 32 different watches for one style. Times that by 10 different styles per league is 320 styles for the NFL, then the MLB, then NHL, the NASCAR. And also you're managing 1,500 SKUs, which is a lot. So you really need to be buttoned up to make sure things don't fall through the cracks.
That's a big business, by the way, Adam, that you're into, and that must be really, fun as well. To be fair, I'm a huge MMA fan myself, and I attended MMA London recently. Actually, I'm going to show you I'm going to pull up where you were talking about merchandise. I had to buy a book that didn't actually contain a lot. For what? 20 quid. That's the amount that I bought it. So that goes to tell you, I'm going to show you that book once. That's going to tell you what it is. People really actually go out there to spend their money when they love the product, So, yeah. Really, really interesting there. So how does licensing change the trajectory of a consumer product? I think you've talked about this a little bit, but can you maybe buttress on it a bit?
So it might change it. It really has been the same for a lot of years. What usually changes is the minimum guarantees and how much you're paying the league. But it's anything you see that has a logo on it. And a great example, I have one sitting here. I don't know if you're a cigar smoker or not, but we just got the license to do ashtrays, right? Cigar ashtrays. So we've got these big cigar ashtrays and torch lighters that we're going to be doing for all the leagues. And again, it's not watches, it's not clocks, but it's another licensed product that we could add to our license that we could sell. So it's always trying to kind of expand what you do, branch out into different categories. I don't know how this will do. I don't know how the ashtrays do. I think they're going to do pretty well. There's a lot of sports and cigar smokers. Somebody wins a championship, they're puffing their cigar and celebrating. So hopefully.
Yeah, so this was as I was saying, this is obviously UFC, they are affiliated to WWE, through TKO. You obviously know about it. Don't know why. So I bought this for 20 quid at the O2 Arena. What does it include? It just has a breakdown of the fights, then a wide statement, and a few of these other things in there. The fighters that are on the card and all these things. So it's I wonder how much production. What's the production for this? Probably way below £2 for one. But again, that's the value, and that's the margins are quite high for some of these products. But again, like you said, that part of the issue is that you need to provide a guarantee ahead of time, isn't it? And it's not something that is easy to go into. So my next question is going to be, how easy did you find it getting into this business?
Well, so the thing with our business, which is nice, when you have a licensed product, you're unique. If you're, let's just say, Timex or Bova or Fossil or one of those watches that the fashion watch, right? If people are going to go out and look at the fashion watch, there's 100 options for you in the fashion watch category. If you want to spend, again, just hypothetically, you want to spend $100 on a watch, there's 100 options that you have for that watch, right?
Yeah.
And just depends on your taste. But with sports, if you want to go out and buy a Yankee watch, you don't have 100 options. You have us, right? So we have that little niche where we know that people are going to come buy our watch. We may have one competitor who comes in and then they go out of the business and want to come in and go out, but we know that Game Time has been here for a long time. So
Yeah.
we're able to carve out that little piece of business. And for us, it's getting people more and more. Obviously, more and more people are buying online. They're not going into retail as much, still buying retail, but not as much. So how do we get people to come to our website to buy? We want somebody to come to GameTimeWatch.com and buy a watch. Why? Because if we sell a watch to Dick's Sporting Goods here in the US, we sell a watch to Dick's Sporting Goods for $50. They put it up for $99.95, right? That's their margin. So we're selling it for 50, they sell it for $99.95. If it sells on our website, we sell it for $99.95. Now we get the profit. We get the full profit, not half of what we would have sold it for. So now it's how do we utilize social media? The business changes, and again, you have to adapt. But the business changes. How do we get influence? How do we get people to go to tell their followers, go to Game Time Watch. Look at me, I'm wearing this cool watch. You wear it too. And
Yeah.
and if we're able to draw up sales that way, it's a game changer for us.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Honestly, this is a really, really interesting topic, and I'm sure a lot of my audience are gonna love this topic because this is a topic that I'm particularly interested in. And obviously, outside of this, we're gonna talk some business because as we're talking now, there are some ideas that are coming into my head about I'll ask you a question later on about possibility of getting into new markets. I'm sure you might have some of those plans, but we'll find out. But for now, what trends are you seeing in the fan merchandise space, and how are you able to stay ahead?
Well, definitely. So things that we're working on right now, and it turns out I hear all the time people say nobody wears watches anymore, and the watch business is still booming. And yeah, we always say the same thing. For us, it's fashion, not function. And for
Yeah,
men, most men, not all, but most men do not wear earrings, do not wear chains, do not wear bracelets. Their accessory is a
yeah,
watch.
yeah,
That's their accessory. So they spend money on that accessory. And again, not all, but most men, it's a wedding ring and a watch. Those are their two main accessories that they're going to wear. For us, it's much more fashion than actual function. So that the myth that nobody wears watches anymore is really just not the case. It's not true.
yeah.
It's a myth, like they say. Oh, well, yeah, people do tell time on cell phones, but they're not wearing their watch to say, oh, look at it, it's 1 o'clock. They're looking at their watch, or they're wearing their watch because it's a fashion piece, a status symbol, and accessory for somebody. So that part of the business, I think, will always stay. The other part of the business, the changing the product, making it new, so your old product is obsolete, right? So we're working on things like a fantasy football watch, where you'll have it's a basic smartwatch, but it'll tie into ESPN or whatever fantasy football league you play in. It'll tie into that app. So when your player scores, you'll get a little vibration on your phone, and you'll see, Brees Hall touchdown, and you'll be able to keep track of your points, what your opponents are doing, just by looking at your watch. So you don't have to, you know, 10 times
Use
a
your
day
phone. Yeah,
look and see how your team's doing. You'll just know you get a little buzz. You can glance at your watch. And so we're working on that. We're working on a gambling watch where if you place bets on one of the big sites here, your team scores or your updates on your score, you'll get on your watch. So things like that. We're doing a smartwatch for the leagues as well, where it'll have all the league logos, like for the NFL, and have all 32 team logos pre-programmed in the watch. So you could scroll through and stop on, the Dallas Cowboys if you want, and it'll be a Dallas Cowboy typical smartwatch. We're working on a number of different programs like that. We're doing some programs, giveaway nights at stadiums. They do, bobblehead night and bat night and those type of things. We're working on with a few different Major League Baseball teams, a watch night, where if you go, the first 15,000 fans get a Game Time watch as a gift for coming to the game. And the way we pitch that to the teams, we say if you normally will draw on an August night, you'll draw 12,000 people, whatever the number may be, 15,000 people. If you're giving away a watch and you get an extra 5,000 people in, if you pay $5 for each watch, that's a $75 investment. How many more people. You get 5,000 more people in. They're spending $100 a head between food, tickets, parking. You've now made $500,000 as opposed to and spent 75. Is that worth it? And most teams go, yeah, makes sense to us. So
Yeah.
that's it. We have to find new distribution outlets. We have to find new product. Just have to keep pushing the company forward.
Awesome. And I do agree with you 100%. I don't think, watches are ever going to be, and you're right, absolutely there. It's now more a fashion thing than a necessity. It's about the style. It's about, the class, right? You don't, men don't wear watch now to, oh, okay, what's the time? Sometimes they don't even look at it really, but it's about the appearance. So that's 100% correct. So yeah, in that sense, that's obviously gonna be there. Yeah,
Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if you look at the high-end watches, the Rolex of the world, and their sales continue to jump, even when the economy's not great, because A, again, that's a men's one accessory, and B, they if watches were functionality, you could go buy a Timex for $30, a digital Timex armament for $30, and it'll keep you great time for 5 years, right?
yeah,
You know you're going to be good, but you go and spend $10,000 on a Rolex, and I always equate it to you could go into Walmart and buy a T-shirt that's $5, or you go into Saks and buy a T-shirt that has a little polo guy on it for $40.
yeah,
T-shirts, both okay, but people buy it because of that status. That
yeah.
they like the look, they like the feel, they like to be able to say, "Look what I'm wearing," and that's the same with our watches.
Mm. I mean, how about a Jacob and Co of over 800 and something $1,000? Yeah, yeah. I mean, and people still buy it. So right. Let's get into the product and innovation then a little bit. How did the idea for a watch that alerts fans before their team's game come to life? So let's talk about product and innovation now. Yeah, how did the idea of a watch that alerts fans before their team's game come to life? How did that idea come about?
Yeah, okay, so the game, and he said, "Oh, the Mets are up 3-0 or something," but David Cohn has a no hitter going through 7 innings. I was with my father. I said, "Dad, let's go back to your house and watch the end of the game." We go back to his place. We watch the end of the game. David Cohn gives up the no hitter. But I started thinking, wouldn't it be cool if you had something that reminded you that the game was on?
Yeah,
I go, what if you had a watch that had it on? And there was, at that point, to get the team schedule, you either had to look in the newspaper and see in a print, or way back in the day, they had in New York, this company, Delwood, they made dairy products and they had milk. On the back of the milk cartons, they would have the Mets schedule printed on it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you saved enough of the labels, you could send it in and get free tickets, right? So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if something like that where you could actually see on your wrist, and then what if an alarm went off to remind you that the game was starting? And when we first did that, I remember the first time somebody called me at the company and told me, they said, I was sitting in a conference room and my watch went off and played Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And everybody turned around and said, what is that? And they said, oh, the Yankee game's starting. The guy was a Yankee fan. He had a Yankee schedule watch. And he said, I just had to call and tell you it's the coolest thing that ever happened. That was great. Everybody loved them. They want to order them, blah, blah, blah. So we really had something kind of cool there. But it was fun to, again, because I'm a fan, it was fun to do this for fans, to see fans get excited about it. I mean, there are times I'd gone out to a hockey game on Long Island here in New York, and I was in traffic, bumper traffic. A guy in the car next to me had his hand out the window. He had an Islander schedule watch on, and I was like, that's awesome. We did one of our big clients for a while was Avon. I don't know if you know Avon, the
Yeah, yeah,
catalog, makeup and all that stuff. They were buying a lot of watches from us at one point. They did a big WWE program.
right.
They did team programs, and I would go to games and I would see people wearing the watches all the time. And it's still a little dorky, but it's still cool for me I see somebody wearing one of the watches that we made and sold. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I could be at a Jets game and see somebody walking, and I never say anything but, hey, that's a really cool watch. And they go, oh, thanks. I never, I'm not one to say, oh, that's my company, or that. Just always compliment them that it's a cool watch. But it's still, after all these years, fun to see.
Mm. Wow, wow. Really, really interesting story there. And I must tell you as well, just for full disclosure, these days, which obviously is different if you get a specific team's watch, right? But obviously there are websites these days that do those things. And obviously if you have a smartwatch that is connected to your phone, you will know what's going on straight on. So again, innovation, and there might be, something there. So what do you say about, I'm sure you're aware of this already, is oh, how do you see that? How are you gonna, how are you gonna direct, in the light of what I've just said, how are you gonna direct your own innovation, to be able to remain relevant?
So I think that part of what you're saying is being that you could already get the info push to your watch if you want. If you wear an Apple Watch, you already get that info push there.
Yeah, yeah.
For us, it's the new. We were making smartwatches right before COVID, and then the chip shortage, and we stopped making them. We're going to start again this year, but have a smartwatch where again it takes it a little step further. You're going to have your team logo. It's an officially licensed, let's say NFL or MLB
Mm,
smartwatch, where you're going to have your team logo on the watch, and you'll be able to push. We'll probably add an app in there
yeah,
where their scores will get pushed to your watch. You can do it right now with ESPN or whoever it may
yeah,
be.
yeah.
Yeah, we also have a watch, interesting, that we're working on now. It's called the Tap Watch, and we're partnered with a group in Hong Kong, some engineers in Hong Kong, who most of the technical stuff goes right over my head, but it's a watch that has a chip in the band, and you could load season tickets in the chip. So the stadium, instead of now, most of the tickets are on your phone. Pull your phone out, go to your Apple, or boom, and you
Yeah.
hit
Okay.
this, tap and go. You go to the concession and you want to grab a drink and your hands are full, tap and
Mm,
go. You don't have to
mm.
take your wallet out. You don't have to take credit card, your phone. It's just everything is in your wrist. So it's called the Tap Watch, the Game Time Tap, we call it. And so we're talking to a few different NBA and NFL teams about um, doing a tap watch for their season ticket holders.
You might want to keep some of these ideas, especially if they're not out there already, so that we don't get people stealing our ideas, you know, and running with it. But really great innovation there that you're doing, and that's really really awesome. I really love this topic.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We really hard to build this. I always like hearing people say that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With smartwatches dominating, how do you keep analog and team branded watches relevant? I mean, I think you've answered this already, but do you want to buttress it a bit more?
Yeah, it's more, again, we talked about the fashion over function part of it, right? So I think that the Apple Watch is not as much fashion. It's more practical. You get your messages, you can do all. I mean, I get that, but for us, it's you want to go to a game on Sunday. You throw your football watch, your Cowboys watch on, or your Steelers watch, your Jets watch. You're going to the baseball game. You want to throw your team watch on. It's another piece of fandom for the fans, right? You have your hat, you have your jersey, you have your boxer shorts, socks, whatever it may be. You have as a fan. This is another piece of fandom where you're able to put it on. And again, for us, our bread and butter is not the. We've made really nice high end watches. When the Raiders moved into the in Las Vegas, they wanted a $25,000 Swiss movement diamond encrusted, really nice heavy duty. So we made that for him. 830 BBSGH, full cut diamonds on the watch, Swiss movement, sapphire crystal lens, search of gray stainless steel. Beautiful watch that they put out for 25 grand. Um, that's great, but we don't sell a ton of those. That's not where our market is. Our
Yeah,
market is, and it's going to, okay, I want to spend 50, $75 on a watch as a gift for dad or mom or whoever it may be, kids.
yeah,
I happen to have one here. We do, kids watches it's your NASCAR Velcro watch that'll sell for 25 bucks. That's really our bread and butter where we'll sell, as opposed to a handful of the $25,000 diamond watches, we'll sell tens of thousands of the small watches that it's, at Christmas times, a stocking stuffer, just kind of easy grab and go type of.
Yeah, really, really awesome there. Thanks, honestly, thanks again for breaking some of these things down. This
I,
topic again really, really intrigues me.
you're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
We've talked about the product, we've talked about let's talk about your own personal resilience as well as a businessman, how you were able to scale your business. You really interesting. When I was going through your profile, you actually sold Game Time and then you bought it back. That's not something that is common. Why? Why did you do it? And what went on? What did you learn from that experience?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. So we were building Giving Time up. We're doing very, very well with the business. 2010, 11 hit, the banks crashed. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac thing, the housing crisis, all that. So the banks all got very nervous, and to be blunt, we got caught, short. We'll say we just got all of a sudden the banks came and said we need any lines of credit you have. We're calling now. The banks panicked. Everybody wanted money immediately, and for us, our business is very cyclical, right? Holiday time, fourth quarter is when we do a huge piece of our business. So we buy all year, so we're stocked for fourth quarter, and that's when we do again a huge part of our business. So they were calling, they were basically any loans we had, any lines of credit we had got called. I mean, okay, so like we probably numbers. If it's a couple $1 million we owed, we knew we were going to sell 5 million off of that, so we're fine. Then we pay it down, and we start the process next year. And we went, oh, it's now in June. They want a couple $1 million from us, which we don't have until we sell the product we have. And
Yeah.
a company who was making came in and said, "Why don't we buy you?" They said I had to stay on for 3 years as president of the company, but they would buy us and pay off everything, make some money. Okay, great. So we sold to them. I stayed on, continued to build a business. We were up at about 15, $16 million a year in sales. Things were moving along nicely. After my 3 years were up, I decided to leave, work for another company, and really didn't like it. I've been working on my own since I was, 24
Yeah.
years old. I had my own business. So I was working for somebody who, again, long story short, had kids in the business who were not all that sharp and very difficult to work in a family business like that. And so I left. And then I was at the Hong Kong Watch Fair, and I met the guy who owned the company who bought us and owned the parent company who bought Game Time. And we started talking. I said, "Are you staying in the licensed sports field?" He goes, "No, I don't really have any interest in that. I want to stay with our fashion watches." I said, "You want to sell it back to me?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll sell it back to you." And it was great because the guy who I was speaking to started his business in his parents' barn in Switzerland, selling one watch at a time out of the barn. So we had that. I was selling out of my basement. He was selling out of his barn. We kind of got along, and it took about a year and a half to get the deal done, but I was able to buy the business back. And then, um, the business had taken a big hit, not because of me, but it had taken a big hit when I left. They weren't paying much attention to it. Sales dropped dramatically. So I got it for a good price when I bought it. But then COVID hit. As we started building, COVID hit and sent everybody, not just me, but everybody knocked them on their ass. It was a tough time, but with the leagues all but shutting down, right? No, nobody's
Yeah.
games, nobody's people were not buying. Everybody was just panicked with what was going on. So we were able to survive that, which was great, and came out the other end. And now we're building back up, which is it's fun. It's not starting over because we have the history, but it's starting from a lower point, which is kind of fun trying to build this business back up again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, and the good thing is you've done it before. Obviously, you can do it again, and you can do it even way, way better. That's I guess the advantage there of that experience that you've had. So what then is the biggest challenge scaling a physical product business? What are some of the biggest challenges?
So say it one more time. I'm sorry, I couldn't get that.
What's been your biggest challenge scaling a physical product business?
Well, right now, my biggest challenge is the tariffs from China, where we make our product. We're looking at new factories in different countries now. I've had such a strong relationship with the factories that I work with in China for 20 plus years. It's difficult, but when a watch that may cost $10 is going to cost $25 once we get it in. And now we have two choices: we don't bring it in, or we bump the price dramatically. So a watch that was $50 before may now be $80, right? So it's that's really the biggest challenge right now, and handling. And again, I think this will all calm down in the near future. It's our economy is so intertwined with China, the U.S. We're so intertwined with them, and without us, they're bankrupt. Without them, we're bankrupt. So cooler heads eventually will prevail, and they will figure it out. But I hope it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, there's even a brand new challenge as well, the tariffs there, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah,
Right.
it's going to be an interesting year coming up.
What role has it played in your path, um, to getting where you are now?
I mean, the bumps of the road that have gotten to me where I am. You're
Yeah,
saying
yeah, yeah. What role has it played? Yeah,
there have been so many. There've been so many. I've made. I used to say to students all the time. I've made so many mistakes in business, um, and if you don't learn from them, you're an idiot. At the end of the day, you can't keep making the same mistake. So you make a mistake, that's fine. It happens to everybody. You learn from it, and you move on, and you make sure you don't do it again. I've done a lot of deals where it's been on a handshake. I tend to trust people, and okay, we have a deal, we shake hands, we have a deal. 90% of the time it works out the way it should. 10% of the time you run into a jerk, I'll say nicely, who will do what he can to try to get over on you. And, I think it's there's so many obstacles, but um, there's no substitute for hard work, right? There's no substitute for putting the time in. You treat people with respect, you get it in return. You're fair and honest to people. Usually, you get it in return. There's a great. I don't know if you know Vince Lombardi, a famous football coach of the Green Bay Packers, and he has a quote. He had a quote that another one of those quotes that I love. I used to give little cards out to the students all the time. One of my it was the difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. And really comes down to it that if one really is focused on what they're doing,
yeah,
there's there's no shame if it doesn't work, as long as busting my talent, that everything I can. There have been times when things I've done have not worked out, and I know I haven't really given my all, and that keeps me up at night. Like
yeah,
I should have known better. So I think that just working hard is there's not really a substitute. And at times, some of the generation coming up now, some of that generation they don't. And I have kids in that generation that's coming up, so I have that conversation with them. There's just no substitute for working hard, and I'm not one for work-life balance. I know I shouldn't get into that. For me, I have to provide for my family, right? So you provide for your
yeah,
family, whatever you have to do to provide for your family. And if that means that I work 6 days during the week and it's not a perfect work-life balance, so be it. As long as
yeah,
they're taken care of, that's what matters, right? So it's all always comes back to me that again, not to keep wearing out these things, but the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? I mean, you work hard, things tend to fall into place. It just,
yeah,
I'd always give to people, just work hard, put your nose down and work hard.
yeah, yeah. Eventually, it's all gonna work out. I think that's the rule, really. You have to keep working. Right. Let's talk just a little bit about the branding and the culture of branding of the business, and then your culture, of the business as well. So what role does storytelling play in your brand? And
It plays a role for us. We're kind of fortunate. A lot of companies, again, in the fashion business, in the fashion watch business, they need to build their company name. That's what they're concerned about. We're very lucky that we have a cool name for sports. Game Time is, synonymous with sports, not as much with watches, unfortunately, but it's with sports. We're cool, but our brand is really built by the leagues, because people want a Yankee watch, right? They want a Dodgers watch, they want a Cowboys watch. It's not as much I want a Game Time Cowboys watch. I want a cool Cowboys watch. We just
yeah,
happen to make those cool Cowboy watches, right? So they could go and we make cool baseball watches, so a baseball fan can come on and buy a watch. That's really what our brand. We're fortunate that on the most part, the leagues build our brand, and we're able to take advantage of that, which is why we pay them such a high licensing fee because they're able to do that for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So what does being the official watch of the New York Jets mean? Not just to your business, but to you personally.
That's being that I'm a Jet fan. It's kind of fun, right? So it's cool, going out to the games and seeing on the scoreboard countdown to game time with the big picture of our watch with a countdown timer in it. Uh, it gives us it gives the company some status because we're the official watch of an NFL team. So we're the official watch of a team that's in the largest, most popular league in the country, right? So the NFL is head and shoulders above everybody else, and we have a little piece of that NFL, not just as a licensee, but we're an official watch of a company of a team that's you know not a lot of people can say. And it gives us direct affiliation with the players who are playing for the team. We could use them in our advertising, our social media. So it really helps, solidify our brand a bit.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Because everyone that affiliates themselves with that team would somehow, get to know the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about like advice and mindset. You are a teacher as well. You're a lecturer, a professor, whatever it is called in America. But you've taught entrepreneurship I think you talked a little bit about this at NYU. Is that a New York University, New York State University? Yeah, and you've advised brands at the highest level. What do you tell young entrepreneurs who want to make it in product-based businesses? Really,
Well,
like myself, young entrepreneurs like myself. What are you going to tell us? What do you tell us?
you know what? My main one for me was just if you believe in what you're doing, don't ever take no for an answer. If you believe in what you're doing, and so many people get discouraged because they talk to somebody and said somebody goes, I don't think that's a good idea. Oh, okay, then I mean, if again with the watch company, I had so many people tell me, "Don't do it. It's not a good idea. It's a waste of time." And again, here I am, 20 plus years later, still doing it. Um, it's you need to put your head down and go in that direction, and not waver and not think, oh, maybe I'll dabble in this and dabble in that and dabble. Just if there's something you're passionate about and you believe in, focus on it and move forward. If it's your podcast, right? You focus on that podcast. I'm going to make this work, and you 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 don't take no for an answer from anybody, anything. And I really think that as an entrepreneur, that's the only way you're going to make the business work. It's some people get very lucky. The things just fall in their lap, and then somebody comes in and gives you a pile of money, and this is great. And you're here, go ahead, and that few and far between. Most people that I know who build businesses, from the ground up have worked really hard for a lot of years to, build that foundation of their company, and never get complacent. Go back to that quote from earlier. Make your product obsolete before someone else does. You can't rest on your laurels. You got to keep moving forward, keep changing, keep adapting. And that, to me, what people need to do. And that's what I would tell the students. And as important as anything else, when you screw up, which you will, which I did, which everybody does, when you screw up, you learn from it and you move on. You make your adjustment, you move on. For lack of a better analogy, it's like a quarterback throwing an interception during the game. You either put your head down and sulk, or you move on. How did
Yeah,
I read incorrectly that maybe throw that interception? Okay, now I know I won't do that again. And you move on. If you keep making the same mistakes, you won't be a quarterback very long, right? You learn from it, and you'll be successful. It's the same thing with business.
absolutely, guys. I'm sure you've heard that there. You need to keep moving.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged by anything. Don't blame yourself. Don't feel bad for yourself. Just believe in what you're doing and keep doing it. We're heading to home straight now, Adam. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Really, really, I really appreciate your presence on the podcast today. What are your personal daily habits or philosophies that keep you sharp?
And get into work. early, right? Get in, get your work started early. I think is important. I think that whole sound mind, sound body thing. It's. I'm certainly not the healthiest eater in the world, so it's not like I eat carrots and celery for breakfast. I'm I don't eat that, but working out, whether it be playing basketball with your friends or whatever it may be, getting workout in so you work off some of that angst that you get during the day. And that's really been my work, get a little workout in at night, and then just try to shut down and do my best. For me, it's a little difficult at times because I'll deal with China, and that means I have to
Yeah.
get on. It's a 12-hour time flip. So if I get on at 10 o'clock at night, it's 10 o'clock in the morning there. So if I need something done there, I need to get on at 10 o'clock at night. I try to limit that. So I'm at night, I could sit back, kick my feet up for an hour, 2 hours, watch a movie, watch the news, whatever it may be, but just kind of decompress from the day and then get up and start again the next day. And that's I think really that for me is been the I love sports. I love playing sports. And whether it's as simple as going for a walk or playing a pickup basketball game or whatever it may be, just get the blood flowing and
Being
try to get
active.
out of your mind.
Really, 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 really important being active. Right. I mean, that's it. So I have one bonus question that truly and honestly came to my mind while we were speaking earlier on. So America is a huge market, right? We already know that already. And but would you be interested in maybe moving into other markets
The
in the
short of
future?
it, yes. What we're the challenge that we run into is the distribution. If I had, we had talked to the UK because the Jets play in England.
Yeah.
They like every other year it seems they're playing there. So the NFL has been playing more games there. So we talked about taking an EU license. I need to have my distribution lined up. Just having a license isn't enough for me. I need to know that we have people there who could sell, and I don't have that distribution on the ground. My answer is yes, absolutely.
Interesting. Honestly, thanks a lot, Adam, for coming on the channel today. Is there anything that you want the audience to know today? Do you have an event coming up? Do you have maybe a program or anywhere you're going to be speaking that maybe you want people to come up or you want people to sign up? Do you have, just talk to the people a little bit about anything that you've got coming up?
Well, I always tell them go to GameTimeWatch.com and check out our product. That's always big, and watch for our new products that are coming out. The cigar ashtrays and lighters are going to be great gifts. We're going to have we have a bunch of sales that are going to go on our site for Father's Day. So that'll be up and going. We have a couple new styles that are coming out. Keep an eye out for the fantasy football watch and some of our new style watches coming out on Game Time Watch.
Awesome. Awesome. Listen, I'm going to put the links to the description of the video below. I'm going to put everything on there, ways they can contact you. If you have your socials, if you the website, everything, I'm going to put everything on there. So not to worry about that at all. So guys, if you've loved this episode, why don't you, give us a like and obviously comment, ask any questions that you have for Adam, and we'll reach to him and he's gonna answer it. If there's any questions, don't forget to share the video as well. Let's raise some awareness here about how to do business. Right. So let's just get on to quick fire questions. I'm gonna ask you maybe 3 or 4 questions just about, just fast things. So the first one is gonna be coffee or tea while walking. Which one do you take? Is it coffee or tea?
Right? Coffee or tea was the
Yeah,
question. I'm a
yeah.
tea. I can't say this masculinely enough, but I'm a tea drinker. I'm a big green tea.
Cool. Beautiful. So would you rather pick Shark Tank or take the stairs with Mark Cuban?
Let's say it one more time. So
Would you rather pick Shark Tank? Shark Tank, the show, or take the stairs with Mark Cuban?
sure thing.
Yeah. Cool. What's right? So what is your favorite watch design ever?
It's a. I just like the look. The style is cool.
Awesome. Awesome. The last one from me is what is the most, I mean, you've also talked a lot about your love for sports. What's the most iconic moment you've ever witnessed live. That's, live in a stadium or an arena.
You know what? I think the most iconic moment in my work, business wise, I mean, working and I think it's all right. So there's a player who played for the Knicks a long time ago, Walt Clyde Frazier, and Clyde was my childhood idol. When I was growing up, I wanted to be Clyde. He was the man, and I got to do an event with him, and I was sitting with him talking for about a half hour, and I just remember thinking to myself, this is so freaking cool. I'm sitting here when I was a little kid, I read his book. I won number 10 because I wanted to be him. He was the first really cool basketball player. He's the first guy to endorse a sneaker, Pumas. Uh, So Puma Clydes are still out now. They still sell Puma Clydes now, and it's after this guy, Walt Clyde Frazier, and sitting with him and talking, going, wow, if 10-year-old me could see this, just that I could be actually hanging out with Clyde. This is cool. So I think that for me was a pretty exciting moment.
Mm,
And I work with a
that's
lot of athletes, and I don't get starstruck. It's not that big a deal. Then I'll tell you one other real quick was Buzz Aldrin, the astronaut. I did an event with him, and I had lunch with him. We had about 2 hours to cover for this event. We went and had lunch, and we're just sitting there talking. And I said, "Look, I know you've been asked a million times about the moon landing, but it's got to be a million and one. I just want to hear about it." And he was as nice as could be and spoke about it and their feelings growing up there. And I'm thinking, wow, how many people get to meet a true hero, not a hero because he plays basketball or but put his life online to better man, to better mankind. And so that was a pretty cool moment as well.
wow. That's an absolutely beautiful story. Right. Is there anything else you want to add just before we wrap up?
No, just I hope your podcast kills it, and I appreciate you taking the time and talking some business and sports and cool stuff with me.
Thank you. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Curious Tycoon podcast today. Journey from a business startup to creating the number one selling sports watch in history of NFL and MLB is not just inspiring, it is also proof that with innovation, grit, and timing, anything is possible. Thank you for sharing your wisdom on entrepreneurship, sports culture, and brand building. For our listeners, guys, if you are a sports fan, if you're a founder, or just someone who is ready to turn your vision into something real, this conversation was your game time. This is your game time. Don't forget to check out the game time watches at gametimewatch.com and show up on time in style. Also, have a look at the description below. We're going to put everything on there and go and check out, all the socials of Adam today. Guys, until I see you in the next one, take care, goodbye, and God bless.